It's time for the Playmaker Spotlight with Executive Coach and Vistage Chair, Dick Smith.
Well, welcome again to the Playmaker Spotlight, the part of Get Down to Business where we speak to CEOs, COOs, and business owners of various sorts, and they share their stories and best practices with us. Playmakers is brought to you in part by Vistage, the world's largest CEO advisory board organization, and I am your host, Dick Smith. I'm the CEO Business Coach, and I'm award-winning chair for Vistage International. I'm thrilled to have as our guest tonight Joe Lundvick. He's a partner and the COO of Perfection Global Incorporated, headquartered in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. And I'm going to read from their website. Perfection Machinery Sales is a used machinery dealer in Illinois. They've been buying, selling, and remarketing used assets since 1963. Over 52 years, it looks like. Perfection operations are separated into four distinct but interwoven business units. Perfection Machinery Sales, Perfection Industrial Sales, Perfection Investment Recovery and Surplus Asset Management, and Perfection Financial Solutions. Pulling from their strengths of each of these four business units, four of them, they're able to create tailored, flexible, and proven solutions for projects big and small, from the purchase of a few surplus assets from, say, a two-man job shop, all the way to the sale of an entire division of a Fortune 100 manufacturer. So Joe, partner and CEO of Perfection Global Incorporated, the guru of industrial machinery sales, assets management, and financial solutions. Welcome to Playmakers, Joe.
Thank you very much, Dick. Thanks for having me.
Good. I hope you liked my introduction.
Very much so. You covered it all.
Good. So, Joe, give us the CNN version of Perfection's story. How did the firm get started? How did you get involved?
Sure. Used equipment legend Sidney Lieberstein, shortly after the Second World War. A lot of guys out of New York started selling off the Army surplus. Really the founding of the used equipment business in the United States. And Sidney Lieberstein, our founder, was one of the original guys that started it. My current partner, Pat Angus, started with Sidney more years ago than he probably cares to admit, and has grown the business into one of the largest used equipment dealers in the world. And the other two partners are myself and Adam Stevenson, came on in 2007.
Mm-hmm. So how many employees do you have in offices? Where do you guys operate?
We've got 35 employees worldwide. The great majority of those are based here in Elk Grove Village in our headquarters. But we do business on, at least 6 continents.
Wow.
And, numerous countries throughout the world. But the great majority of our employees are here in our headquarters in Elk Grove Village.
So, typical customer, how do you get involved? They've got equipment that's a little dated. Perhaps they want more state-of-the-art, and they have used stuff they either want to get rid of or trade in or something of that sort, right?
Sure. It runs the gamut. We've got small, as you mentioned, two-man job shops that might want to get rid of an old shear that they've used and are getting something later model, all the way up to multi-million-dollar Fortune 100 manufacturers that are selling. We've got an automotive engine line that we'd like to trade out. We're changing it from 4-cylinder to 6-cylinder. They'll bring us in, and we will sell off that outdated or that slightly older engine line, be it, $1 million all the way up to $30 million.
So there are other companies in the industrial machinery sales and asset management space, obviously. How do you guys differentiate yourself from your competitors? Why would I come to you to sell my used stuff?
Sure. The biggest differentiator for us is that we do everything under one roof. There are appraisal firms in our world. There's auction firms in our world. There's used equipment dealers. There's asset management firms, and there's asset-based lenders. But there is nobody that does all of that in one company. And Perfection Global does everything from that. If you need a bench grinder appraised and it turns out it's worth $400, all the way up to, you can imagine GM calling us and saying, we'd like to liquidate one of our facilities in Detroit. We can handle that range of services for that range of clients.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, Joe, how does the fluctuation in the economy? I mean, one day you're reading that, manufacturing is up. The next day it's down, and it's quarterly up-down swings. What does that have to do with affecting asset sales?
Certainly goes in line with it. We are used equipment sales for the most part, and typically when things are really good, your large manufacturers are buying new equipment. Mm-hmm. Your smaller and mid-size manufacturers aren't able to afford the new equipment because the new equipment's going for top dollar to the big manufacturers. We fill that role where In good times, the bigger manufacturers are buying from us used because, maybe they don't want to pay top dollar for new. In bad times, you can imagine that nobody's buying equipment, especially new equipment that tends to be quite a bit more pricey. They'll buy the used equipment. The piece that I'm selling used for $50,000 can make the exact same part as that brand new machine that's being sold for $250,000, but it might do it 1 or 2 seconds slower per job part.
Right.
And if those 2 seconds aren't a big deal, obviously you're way ahead of the game to buy a used piece.
Gotcha. Well, hey, if you're just tuning in, this is the Get Down to Business Playmaker Spotlight, and it's brought to you again by Vistage International, the world's largest CEO and business owner advisory board organization. And we're talking to Joe Lundvick, partner and COO of Perfection Global. So tell me, what's your take on manufacturing? Give me the macro view as well as the Illinois micro view. Where are we going in manufacturing?
I'm only one person, but I tend to be very positive, and I guess the positive news tends to strike me more than the negative news. People talk about manufacturing dying in the United States. I don't know that I agree with that. I compare it to an article I read years ago where back in the day, a farmer needed 40 people to bring in that crop. Yeah. Today, that same farmer needs one really good machine and maybe 2 people to bring in that crop.
So are we talking about robotics then in the U.S.,
Absolutely.
Replacing hard labor?
Robotics, better technology, better automation. It might have taken 40 people to make that part 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. Today, it takes 2 people with a good list of machines and some robots. Yeah. The kid that's learning video games and is good at programming, he's running our manufacturing machines now. Yeah. Obviously love the older gentlemen that were good with their hands and can dial in the perfect tolerances. But today it's the kid that knows how to program that computer to make that part in 2 minutes versus the 3 minutes somebody else was making it in.
And one of the jobs your industry has is to attract young people into manufacturing, isn't it, Joe? What challenges do you have there? Do they still see it as a dirty business with their nails getting dirty, or are they coming along to see the new future?
They certainly do. You obviously read the same articles I'm reading where people still think of it as a dirty business. The computer world, the internet age, all of the animation that's available, we are making leaps and bounds where people are saying, wait a minute, you're telling me I could make actual things instead of just on my computer with a CAD cam? Yeah. I could really turn this computer program into an actual car. Just recently at one of our bigger trade shows, the Precision Metal Forming Association, they brought the world's first 3D printed car. Wow. Stuff like that certainly opens people's eyes and gets people interested. They are now 3D printing cars that actually drive.
It's unbelievable.
It truly is.
So that's eliminating all the die where you got to create the die, spend all the money, put it in, and if it doesn't work, you got to go back to the drawing board. The 3D printer...
It has that potential. I wouldn't say it's eliminating it all, but that was done as a sort of a theatrical, hey, look what can be done. Mm-hmm. And it certainly opened a lot of people's eyes. Guys are really getting into it.
So robotics, 3D printing, what other changes are you facing in your industry with the used equipment sale and technology?
Well, we go with whatever people want. The beauty of used equipment is if somebody calls me and says they love Morisaki, which is a very large, well-known brand, I don't need to fight them and say, no, you really want a Haas, which is also a good